management consulting organization focused on intersection of agriculture and technology. We welcome you to this episode of Uncluttering Food and Agriculture web series. Uncluttering Food and Agriculture is an initiative in which we discuss with global change makers key issues impacting food and agriculture sector and how we can make this sector environmentally sustainable, financially inclusive, efficient, and fair. We try to understand how these global transformative leaders view current food and agriculture ecosystem and what is their vision for the sector going forward. Today, we have with us Cherrie Atilano. She is the founding farmer, CEO, and president of AGREA. AGREA is a for-purpose and inclusive business that is creating the first replicable one island economy that is zero hunger, zero waste, and zero inefficiency. Though the ecology of dignity approach, AGREA aims to help eradicate poverty for farming and fishing families in order to alleviate the effects of climate change and establish food security in the Philippines, to be precise, and the world in general. Cherrie started teaching farmers at the age of 12, has 22 years of vast experience in sustainable food systems. She graduated top of her class, magna cum laude, at Visayas State University with a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. She is major in horticulture, specializing on tissue culture. She is a recipient of many national and global awards, including the Outstanding Woman in Nation Service Award, Inspiring Filipina Entrepreneur, first awardee of Women of the Future Social Entrepreneur in Southeast Asia, the Outstanding Men and Women of the Philippines 2018. She also led AGREA in winning the UN Global Compact's Global Responsible Business Award 2017 for Agriculture Excellence and the fourth ASEAN Rural Poverty Eradication Leadership Award in 2019. She is a high-level ambassador of the United Nations Scaling Up Nutrition and advisory board member of the World Bank Solutions for Youth Employment, 2020 class of the Young Global Leaders, the World Economic Forum, and board member of the Global Alliance of Improved Nutrition, Geneva. Thanks a lot, Cherrie, to accept our invitation to participate in this web series, Uncluttering Food and Agriculture. Floor is yours to tell us more about the great work you are doing.
Thank you very much, Deepak, for the invitation to be here in your, show or online interview. And I'm so happy always to share my insights, especially if it's talking about the things that I'm passionate, and I love to do, food and agriculture. And I'm so happy also. I really would like to honor you for starting this conversation because all the more, I guess, post-pandemic, and even during pandemic, the conversation for agriculture has been mainstreaming, not just conversation, but really activities all over the world. Maybe in India and in the Philippines, it kind of triple in action. And more than that, the space for farmers and fishers, basically the food producers, are given enough attention. I've been teaching farmers since I was 12 years old. So it's been more than 2 decades. I may look young, but not. So more than 2 decades, but I'm still millennial, basically. Maybe I just started young, Deepak. So I'm always fascinated, and I always say that the farmers, are my teachers. In this journey for more than 20 years, I'm a very lucky person that at a very young age, I know what I want to do in life. I found my calling and purpose at a very young age that I never even had to experience midlife crisis. Because, despite the fact that even my mom, did not want me to be into agriculture, I left home and sent myself to school because I really want to be in agriculture. It was a tough decision to do for a 15-year-old girl, but I think it would have been tougher if I did not follow my heart. I could have not been in my position right now with a long list of introduction you mentioned if I did not follow my heart. So I always believe that the work in agriculture, especially in AGREA, it's such an important endeavor that we need to discuss. All the more, it's because our population globally is insatiably growing, right? It's exponentially growing, and food production is declining. Our resources are getting smaller every day. Our water becoming saltier. Our soil is becoming more polluted, and lesser soil can be planted because of industrialization. But the consumers are increasing in numbers. And all the more, aside from them increasing their numbers, their diet become more complex and complicated, right? Before there's like vegetarian diet, now you can hear flexitarian diet and things like that. So you see my point. The resources are becoming smaller. The consumers, the resources are becoming smaller. The food producers are aging. The consumers are becoming exponentially growing, but at the same time with more complex and complicated demand for food in terms of diet. And here we are with the effect of climate change, where agriculture and food production is always at the mercy of our environment. So there's no excuse not to do something but sustainable, right? How can we balance both benefit for people, for planet, and also for progress, not just for profit, but for everyone's progress? So as a social entrepreneur, it's always a moment to wake up every morning. I'm so inspired every morning to wake up that, as a person, what will I do, right? So in AGREA, our company, if you see, I guess, on my background, it's about ecology of dignity. Farming is cool, smart, sexy, and humane. It's because, building that ecology of dignity is not only about the dignity that we desire, as consumers, but it's really about building the dignity of people and every stakeholder in the food supply chain. More importantly, starting from our farmers and fisher folks, our food producers, because it's such a crime against humanity that the producers of the food are the poorest and the hungriest. It's a crime that we allowed to happen. And the ecology of dignity is something, a mantra in our business. We're known in the Philippines as an agribusiness with a heart. Even our Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary William Dar, who stayed in India as an executive director, director general of ICRISAT, would always say that, Cherrie, your business is an agribusiness with a heart, and hopefully a lot of businesses will do the same. So what do we do with AGREA? So we have been working with a lot of smallholder farmers. I think we can, we have similar scenarios, right? In India, I've been to India several times, and it's one of my most favorite countries in the world to travel. Before the pandemic, I was in India in February to early March in 2020. The moment I get back in the Philippines, it's total lockdown. So it's good. I enjoyed India for my vacation for 3 weeks. And I always observe that our farmers and your farmers are the same. We have smallholder farmers with land holding half a hectare to 1.5 hectares. No access to market, no access to information, no access to financial support, and with very little intervention in technologies. But with your population, that's such a huge task to your farmers to feed all the Indians, in India alone. And so, Philippines, we're not even, I think we're just 1/10 of your population, but it's such a task also with our aging farmers to also feed our population. Our another problem that we have aside from the land size is the aging population of farmers. Average age of farmers globally is 60 years old. Same, I guess, in India and in the Philippines. And a lot of young people are not interested in agriculture. I guess, I can consider myself young. You too. I saw your picture. You're in your farm in your Facebook. So you're still young at heart. If you don't belong to millennials, at least you're young at heart. We need to really find that force on how to encourage, and inspire a lot of young people to go in agriculture. And lastly, how do we take care that agriculture should be gender equal? Because when you go to the farming communities, most of the time it's the women farmers really doing something, for their family, doing something for their community. So in Agria, when we designed our social enterprise, the name in itself, it's so intentional. I always believe in the power of mindfulness, the power of conscious intentions. And when we design Agrea, it's actually a fusion of two words. It's agriculture plus Gaia, Mother Earth. So how do you produce more that it's not hurting our planet? And how do you produce more that is inclusive? Women inclusive, youth inclusive, and more importantly, the poorest of the poor should not be left behind, right? But aside from that, having also the premise that if you want to establish an agribusiness, especially it's a social enterprise, we need to respect that agriculture is both food production and income generation. The moment it's not income generation, it's not palatable or encouraging for our farmers to see it as a business. It will never be encouraging for a lot of our young people to even see it as a business. So this is actually where our company has been working on. I started Agrea in 2014, and to really like make sure how we can solve this problem in the agriculture sector. If you list down in it, it's a lot, right? Access to education, access to technology, access to market, training and capacity building of aging farmers with less education. It's a lot. But I think Deepak, same as you, we always need to choose our battles and attack where we're good at. So in Agrea, we have a farm school. It's run by Agrea Foundation. The farm school designs curriculums that are friendly for women, friendly for smallholder farmers, that the technologies that are being taught to them are not intimidating at all. Because the moment the technologies are so intimidating, it's full of scientific jargons that the farmers cannot understand, and more importantly, they don't know how to apply it on their fields, it will not be successful. And another one is designing curriculums that it's so focused on deep values formation, understanding on why are we doing this? What is our dream for ourselves? What is our dream for our family? What is our dream for our farming communities? What is our dream for our country as an agricultural country? The moment you teach one person to dream, that dream is a powerful tool to change, his or her mindset. But more importantly, the mindset would translate to how he or she acts towards, action, and more so collective action. So the farm school takes care of values formation of our farmers, basically teaching them how to dream, being grateful of what they have. I remember, Deepak, when I was designing our curriculum in our farm school, I asked the farmers to close their eyes for 10 minutes and figure it out, and imagine that they're in their favorite sitting place in their house where they're having coffee, and just count how many coconuts they have, how much land they have, how much chickens they have, how much animals they have around, how much banana plants they have. And after that, they need to list it down. And I asked them, can you please tell me, are you poor or not? And what's happening to their family, are their children in school, their wives? And I would ask them, so what is the disconnect? You are not actually poor, you have everything. You have 20 chickens, you have a hectare of land, you have 100 coconut trees, you have 20 bananas, you have a house, but we need to fix it to be better so that when it's raining, it's not raining inside. You have a healthy family. If your kids are not in school, so it's something that we need to work on to send them to school. So it's actually a mindset change of gratefulness and operating from abundance. So it's something that we teach to our farmers. And second one is we teach them technologies that are very friendly to them, including their wives. And if they go back, they can teach and replicate to their communities. And lastly, we teach them financial literacy and agribusiness. So the moment they go through to our farm school and they graduate, we can now work with them in business because they're kind of mature in dealing with whatever kind of agribusiness they want to do. So that's the premise of AGREA on how we fix like mindset, how we fix, this scarcity mindset of our farmers, but at the same time work on abundance, abundance from the land, abundance from their environment, and more importantly, enabling their environment by having a support system like us that we're here with you, we're doing this because we really want to change your life for the better. But as we change your life for the better, this business is changing more lives to the better. So the moment you change your lives, it's now your accountability and responsibility to change more lives so that we can uplift more. So it's really about brothers keeping kind of value system. And of course, with a business, when the business would arrive to them, it's always about how do we do business in a sustainable way that even if we grow, we will never hurt Mother Earth. Because Deepak, I'm a strong believer that food is our umbilical cord to Mother Earth. The moment we forget that fact, it's easy for us to disconnect from nature. It's easy for us to be more destructive to nature because we don't acknowledge that fact that we are so connected to nature as a source of our food. So, in terms of that, our farmers are always well aware that we need to practice regenerative farming in our approaches in natural and organic farming, where we're not hurting the soil, we're not hurting the waters, but more importantly, we still increase our production in a long term. So I think those are some of the activities that I may share. And for sure, you know, the way you will ask questions to me later on, I can just share freely.
Sure, 100%. And very well articulated. And the other thing, actually, what I loved about, how you articulated what you said, is that there is a direct connect. You can visibly see that, it is just not umbilical cord, but your heart is very well connected to the Mother Earth. And that's very important, right?
Thank
And
you.
and generally, when you talk to agri businesses, 80% is business and 20% is livelihood. In your case, it was the other way around. You talked 80% livelihood and 20% business, and that's the sign that there is a direct connect. In fact, I'm working on a project called Evolving Root, in which we are working on a regenerative farming, trying to give soil back its dignity, ensuring that people who work, they work with dignity and give all utmost respect to the food which we are creating, because at the end of the day, as you rightly said, that connects us with the earth. That brings me to my second question. I'm a strong believer of sustainable agriculture, but at the same time, when we connect livelihood and sustainable agriculture, uh, there is always a dichotomy where people start believing that sustainable agriculture cannot be profitable agriculture for the farmers. Now, I would like to understand a little bit your views, because, you have been working on the islands, trying to create, isolated communities and connecting them and creating a viable business proposition for these small and marginal farmers. So, what's your view about, that a sustainable business can be a profitable business?
Oh, that's a brilliant question, actually. For me, sustainable business, of course, the moment I always believe in this philosophy, Deepak, on doing good and doing well at the same time, right? Because you can do well, but not do good. For me, when you have that mindset in you, sustainable business will always work with you, especially sustainable agriculture in your practices. So like for example, in the Philippines, AGREA is actually working on a one island economy model. It's because when I don't know if you've been to the Philippines, but for our viewers who've been to the Philippines, we're such a beautiful archipelago of 7,700 more islands,
No, I've been to Philippines, your Philrise, Erie, AITEC. I've been to the southern part of Philippines. There was a project called Better Rice Initiative, BRIA, right? So I've traveled extensively. So unfortunately, I forgot to compliment back when you said India is beautiful. Philippines is really beautiful, and I would request all the audience, whenever you get the time to travel, as soon as the COVID is over, please book your first flight to Philippines. You'll find beautiful Manila, though it is a little bit traffic intensive and like you that's a challenge. But you go to the the outskirts, go to provinces. It's so beautiful country, it is mesmerizing. Indonesia and Philippines, they are top there in as far as beauty is concerned. Please carry on.
Yeah. So our islands, we have more than 7,000 plus islands, right? And of course, we have beautiful beaches because white, long range of white sand beaches. But when you go to those islands, Manila is so traffic because people are they're congesting in Manila. Because Manila seems like the place where you can earn money. When you go to India, it's like Mumbai, Delhi, right? Those city centers or urban centers where opportunities are always like growing. So traffic are growing because people in provinces or in rural communities would come to Manila to look for opportunities. So in AGREA, what we do is we do a one island economy model. Why can't we go in an island in the Philippines? It needs to be small or big island. So we started with the island of Marinduque because it's the heart of the Philippines. When you measure the Philippines in terms of latitude and longitude, that's where kilometer zero started. And it's very historical also. It has, 400 plus years old churches in the island. But more importantly, we started in that island because it's 86% agricultural, both farming and fishing. So we said, why a lot of the people in this island are leaving the islands to go to Manila, that if you're going there, it's just a vast of agricultural opportunities. So in one island economy, it's really about creating an economy of an island based on agricultural sustainability and economic development. So how do we do that? In AGREA, you mentioned a while ago, we believe in zero waste, zero hunger, zero insufficiency, right, in all our operation. So in every island that we develop in terms of sustainable business, we focus on, first, let's see what's the situation of their environment. So we focus on zero waste because we believe that environment is the forefront and foremost the social security system of the food producers and the consumers. If our environment is destroyed, so then the resources to create food is destroyed, to create economic opportunities is destroyed. So the zero waste of AGREA, we utilize whatever waste in the farm, converted them into organic fertilizer, plow it back to the soil, and more importantly, we really take care of our soil health and our waters, because the moment we pollute our waters, we also pollute the source of livelihood of the fisher folks. So second one is about zero hunger. So this is not about the hunger of stomach or physical hunger that you can eat rice and you're full. This is really about having the thinking heart, thinking heart, right? Having the thinking heart that how the people in the island can actually have food on their table in a more sustainable way, that they can produce food enough for them to eat, but also produce food that can build their livelihood and sustainable livelihood. That could be the basis of their business. And lastly, this is our business model, the zero insufficiency. This is about creating an economic opportunities where no one is left behind, and it's about circular economy. So we study the import and export of every island we are present. Right now we're operating in two islands. One is Marinduque Island. One is Siargao Island. It's the surfing capital of the Philippines. Very, very famous. International surfing is happening there every year. And these two islands, we study the import and export. And now we have 6 more islands in the pipeline. These islands are so beautiful. Deepak, name it, Palawan, Boracay, Bohol. These are destinations islands. No, they're signing up to our model to basically create this. Because the moment the island is touristic, their food security is also threatened. The food goes to the tourists, and the food becomes so expensive. But more importantly, a lot of farmers leave their jobs to work in tourism industry. So it really creates an economy, but it threatens rural development. So when we study the import and export of every island we're present, if we see opportunities in lessening their import, whatever they bring into the island, we study it, gather data about it, do experiment about it, that why are they importing a lot of vegetables if their soil is conducive enough for vegetable farming? If why are they bringing a lot of rice if they can actually grow rice? And we study, so what's the reason why they cannot grow rice? So we work with the government on infrastructure support of farmers, from irrigation system to farm to market road kind of infrastructure. And lastly, about export. So for example, in island of Marinduque, that island alone has more or less 4 million coconut trees.
Wow.
But the farmers are so poor. They're only harvesting the coconut meat, and they dry it, they call it copra, and they sell it at a meager income. Every 40 days they earn 3,000 pesos. 3,000 pesos is like $60. That's nothing. So our goal now as a company is we're trying to work on how to quadruple that income so that they can graduate from the economic poverty thresholds of the Philippines, which is like around $250. So we want them to go above that poverty thresholds of the Philippines. So in terms of export, if they have like coconuts and we need to increase their income, what are the other interventions that AGREA can do? So we process coconut sugar from their coconut so that it's high value. We work on producing a virgin coconut oil with some communities. But more importantly, if you have a hectare of land, it can only accommodate 100 coconut trees because they need to be planted by, huge spaces in between. So in between spaces, actually the reason why we're planting ginger and turmeric, it's because we plant them in the middle. And some communities there in Marinduque, they also plant cacao for cocoa in the middle and coffee, in the middle of these trees. So these are the interventions that if you cannot go for really more value addition, like what we do, you can also do diversification, which actually helps the farmers on diversifying their sources of income. So, but they are required to take care of livestock and poultry while they're taking care of their coconuts and ginger. But at the same time, to plant vegetables for their consumption and something that they can also sell in the market. So we try to really create, we have this called in the company nutrient dense agriculture, where, nutrient dense. In a hectare of land, what are the nutrients that you can harvest from vegetables, from your livestock or poultry, from your coconuts, from your superfoods, ginger and turmeric? But at the same time, design it that it's climate resilient. If typhoon comes and their coconuts are damaged, at least they still have vegetables. At least they still have root crops to earn income. At least they still have livestock and poultry to earn income. So these are the interventions that we do in the business, Deepak. Yeah.
Super awesome. In fact, I would again make a request to audience. Please start eating coconut sugar more than the conventional sugar. Coconut sugar uses 1/8 of water what is required to make conventional sugar. So please, it is more healthy and it is more sustainable. So please do that. And again, this brings me to a little bit of more drilling on the same topic. Right, when we talk about ecological agriculture, regenerative agriculture, diversification, see there are two thought process. One thought process is what you are doing, trying to create biodiversity, work with the type of environment of the island, try to work with the livelihood, try to work with what is import required to make the island self-sufficient. There is another view which says that actually optimize, right, those crop which grows with higher yield with less of inputs in any specific area. Right. So, for example, why to grow rice when you can grow, right, ginger or turmeric, which is more, I'll say, profitable. So, how do you see that, I'll say that two streams of thought. One talking about super efficiency and forget about the ecological impact, but at the same time, long run, you'll have ecological positivity. And second, talk about creating the local communities and trying to work with that. How do you see which direction? You believe in long run, the country, for example, like Philippines or India should be moving in?
Yeah, for me, Deepak, as we started, I always believe that, we practice sustainable agriculture, right, with respect to the environment. And another viewpoint that I want to share is respect also to local wisdom
Hmm.
and the community wisdom. Because the moment you change all that cultural, wisdom of the locals, it's also a disrespect to them as, owners of the land and the ones cultivating the land. So sometimes it's such a hard act to balance, I must say, right? Because some, they're so, they try to not adopt technologies immediately because you want to really stick on old traditions. But sometimes old traditions, they need to be improved because climate change is real and it's not a joke. So educating the farmers, very important, as long as it's not damaging their environmental condition. And a lot of our farmers also that we tried to work with, they were into super unconventional farming when we started. And they would always share to us that after 3 years or 4 years or 5 years of using too much synthetic fertilizer, too much synthetic pesticides, their field is not producing the same way as how they started. The moment they put more synthetic chemicals on their soil, the more that their soil is not responding because it's reached the saturation level. So here we educate them because you will cost more in terms of putting all of these chemicals than doing the sustainable way that it will enrich the health of your soil. So we even have programs about soil conditioning, that if your soil is your source of livelihood, how do you take care of your soil? This is like a very scientific approach, but we try to work on it in our farms. And right now I'm so happy that our government is actually now creating a massive program that I just read in the news early this morning. Our president actually signed around almost 500 million pesos worth of funds for soil rehabilitation and soil health, by even putting soil laboratory testing centers to rehabilitate our soil, because for the longest years they were polluted with so much chemicals, and we need to go back to rejuvenating its health and restoring its microorganism. So these are something that we try to work with our farmers. But I think, Deepak, in terms of business, once they see numbers, they believe it. So we always tell them that this is your cost when you do this type of unconventional farming, and you can only survive in 3 to 4 years. And this is your cost once you do this type of regenerative farming. It will sustain you forever until your next generation. So it's just a matter of information and just a matter of being patient in educating them. That's why actually capacity building is something that we really focus, that our farm school is taking care of.
Super, super. So no, actually, I was supposed to ask you this question, but you have already answered it very well. That resistance of farmer to adopt new ideas which you bring on table. So as you rightly articulated, that actually, if in couple of season they are able to see the value, if you are able to show them that they'll be more profitable and the longevity will increase. At the same time, they can respect their soil. Every farmer will love his soil, but only thing is that financial challenges make them do things which they have been doing. So it's right that if we are able to train them well and put across in the right manner the ideas, and once the trust is built, then farmer are the most loyal people I've seen. Right, they're ready to stake everything for that loyalty. Now we are coming to this final part of this interview, where I would like to understand from you, right, what is your vision of food and agriculture system going forward? What the world need to do it now, so that we don't get into the wrong side of the nature, and we see what's happening with the climate change. And in fact, Philippines has been enduring that pain far more than many of the other countries, being an island or group of islands as a nation. So I would like to understand what's Cherrie's vision that she would like to give to the world for making agriculture and the food sector more sustainable, and ensure that we are not standing against the nature but in support of nature.
Yeah, brilliant question, Deepak. I really need to think deep about that. It's something actually that I'm always asking myself why for 23 years now I'm still in this sector, never been dissuaded to go to anywhere else. It's because I really see potential and opportunities on making a change in this sector. For if you see the world, of course the world is run in terms of food, right? Especially during this pandemic. I think I never heard of someone during the series of lockdowns in different countries or even in single communities here in the Philippines that someone ran to the supermarket to buy new clothes, to buy new shoes, to buy new cars, right? Everybody runs to the supermarket or to markets to buy food to hoard because they don't know how long the lockdown would be. So it just says something that agriculture and food is still the most essential business. But since it is the most essential business, how do we progress with this business? What would really be our intentions to this? So I'm actually part of the United Nations Food System Summit as one of its champions since it started. We're always talking about how do we see the world growing its food in terms of respecting climate change, in terms of loving the environment more by having to boost nature positive kind of agriculture. you know Before it was really like how do we increase our production without respect to the soil, the air, the water. Now we're going back, hey, wait, we need to step back because we have 10 years down the line for the sustainable development goals, and this pandemic just worsened everything that we started for the last 20 years. And now where are we going, right? So it's really about, this pandemic is such a awakening for all of us, and to be enlightened individuals, to really go on nature positive kind of agriculture production, boosting that. It's actually my vision. Restore all those degraded land mass that we use for something else, to go back to really, reclaiming the health of our planet. Second one is how much is enough. Sometimes I really ask, as an entrepreneur, you would say, and I always inspire, how much is enough? Why a lot of people would say like, we need to accumulate this because we're accountable to our shareholders, right? Me, both I experienced running a non-social enterprise and now I'm running a social enterprise. Being a social entrepreneur really clearly defines on you and teach you how much is enough. And by answering that enough is also teaching, hopefully, my vision for all people who have business in agriculture, food, and beverage industry to focus on what is good for our planet, what is good for the health of our people. Done with the things of feeding our people those, food that can pollute and poison their body, right? Um, let's go for eating something that is healthier for us. Let's go for something that support planetary health and planetary diet that we are seeing now. But more importantly, Deepak, is to really have more space for inclusivity in the agriculture sector, that hopefully in the coming decades and in the next generation, the smallholder farmers will be given enough support, not only in Asia, but also in Africa. The smallholder farmers will have a space to really contribute to the growth of our, of the earth and, of humanity in a good way. But at the same time as well is inclusivity in terms of gender equality in the agriculture sector. In the Philippines, I've been working on pushing for a Magna Carta for women in the agriculture sector. So I'm trying to work with some people in the Congress or House representatives to hopefully pass this bill in the next few years. It's because the moment we unlock opportunities for women, women would always gives more to their family, right? They're the first to plant, the first to grow, the last to harvest, and the last to eat because they always prioritize their family, their children. So I really want to unlock more potentials to women because if women, owning half of the world is composing half of our population, they also need to have that seat. I always share to this that if you don't have a seat on a table, it's time for you to bring a folding chair, right? So hopefully, we can provide more seats because investing in women in farming community is actually investing in the entire community. And lastly is the youth. I'm still a millennial and I'm always advocating for making farming, encouraging and inspiring for young people to be here. Because if our population of food producers are aging, what is sustainability in the process? How do we feed ourselves in the next 10 years, right? With the aging food producers population. So for me, the youth should be awakened to go. And Deepak, I always share this to young people. The moment I see agribusiness as very powerful tool, because if you see all the biggest companies in the world, except the tech that just came out in the last few decades, it's all food. They dominate the wealth of the world and will still dominating the wealth of the world because everyone eats. Why? I always share the analysis that if there's one person being born in this world every day, that one person will live, for example, in the next 60 years up to retirement. Feeding that person every day, how many meals a day is a business in the next 60 years? So if how many people are born every day, feeding that people in the 60 years is a business for the next 60 years. So we need to see that agriculture is not a hobby for people who is like, oh, I want to be in the agriculture because it's like a fad and fashionable right now. I think you could hear that. But I really want to be in agriculture because I can create greater impact both on planet and people, social and environmental. But at the same time, leaving that legacy of let's reclaim back the health of our planet by taking good care of the source of our food, right? And respecting the food that we put in our body. So I might share with you a very like deep mindful kind of mindset towards it, but that's how basically I run my company.
No, that is great because I see a lot of convergence because for me also, like, when 6.5 years back I got into agriculture, it was to give back something and have an impact, right? So there is a gentleman called Jack Sim. He's from Singapore. He is
Yeah.
like, the World Toilet Organization head. So he said, Deepak, what's your impact on the world? And believe me, like, I was a successful entrepreneur, but I was not able to answer that question. And that made me think about like, what I can do. And I found like, I have fascination for agriculture. And I traveled extensively from like, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Ghana, Ethiopia. Learned a lot. And in fact, like, I see one more place where like, I'll be a good student, and that would be your farm school. So as soon as the pandemic is over, you can vouch for there is one more student, that's me. I'll come down and learn from you, right? For sure. Yeah, yeah, and like, I like the clarity of the thoughts which you are bringing, and connecting, like, the I'll say that's a little part of this discussion when we were having. I got into meditative state, like, I'm listening to a Buddha, right? So that's the beauty, like, what you're working is like, connecting business, connecting environment, connecting the spirituality all together, and that's a very rare combination. And congratulations for that. I'm pretty sure that, like, all your vision would be fulfilled. Again, I would like to thank you for being part of this session, and like, definitely this audience would learn a lot, and definitely, like, after this session, like, they would start adoring you for what you are doing for our planet. Thanks a lot, Cherry, and it is an honor to host you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepak. I guess last statement I want to share to our viewers. My mom would always share me and told me when I was 6 years old, the shortest distance in life is the distance between your brain and your heart, right? If you don't know to connect the shortest distance, forget about life. Because she was telling me, I don't want you to be successful. I want you to be significant. I want you to create significant impact and changes in others people's life. Because that's the purpose of living. Yeah. So thank you so much. It's such a pleasure being here.
You are a very significant woman. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.